Welcome to Contemporary Retirement. Contemporary Retirement is a public interest program focused on the retirement community. Every program has segments on legal, financial, and health issues affecting the retirement community. Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a major grant from the Family Heritage Trust Company.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored by Family Heritage Trust Company. The Family Heritage Trust Company is an independent bank chartered trust company established by local professionals to provide fiduciary services including fee-based investment advice, trust services, retirement planning, and tax planning. The Family Heritage Trust Company is committed to client service in our communities. For more information, call the Family Heritage Trust Company at 301-631-5900.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from R. Thomas Murphy & Associates, P.C. R. Thomas Murphy & Associates is one of Franklin County's leading law firms, emphasizing estate, trust, elder law, and medical assistance planning.
Welcome to the Is It Legal feature on Contemporary Retirement. Is It Legal focuses on the legal issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Tom Murphy from the R. Thomas Murphy Law Firm with offices in Waynesboro, McConnellsburg, and Chambersburg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom, we've been doing a sequence here on There's Nothing You Can Do, and every day we have families come into our office who find themselves with a loved one in a long-term care environment, and they say, there's nothing we can do.
Exactly, and it's disappointing because, oftentimes that leads people to doing nothing or sitting on their hands, and our job and why we beat on this is to make it clear there's lots you can do, especially after admission.
And oftentimes we deal with this, well, I don't want to pay a lawyer because I'm paying a nursing home bill. Well, my attitude is I don't want to pay a lawyer either. and I fully respect that, and our premise is we can't add value, then you shouldn't be talking to us. But we also are telling people, you're staring in the crosshairs of something between $120,000 and $150,000 a year. You owe it to yourself to have an hour or two consult with a high-quality elder law attorney to figure out whether or not that statement, which we know is almost uniformly not true. There is almost always something you can do. They almost always have options, and they're substantially better than you're being told.
Exactly, and so people are often surprised, always surprised, that there are the rules there that are going to protect them and allow them to help deal with that huge bill.
Well, and I somewhat chuckle because some of the things that the state imposed in the rules to try to penalize people to keep them from being able to make transfers, actually, if you understand those rules, you can turn them to the benefit of the client, because almost no rule is overwhelmingly successful in all situations. And we use some strategies that actually totally comply with the law, fully disclosed to the government, that actually improves the outcome for the family.
Yeah, and what your point there is you got to know the rules. If you don't know the rules, it's like going to Vegas and playing blackjack, not knowing what's going on.
Well, it's a huge challenge. When we embarked upon learning this stuff, your former partner, who unfortunately passed, Greg Kearse, and I started on this in the mid-'90s. And it was hard, and we had no idea what we were doing, and it was quite a learning curve as he and I went hand in hand learning how to do this stuff. And then, of course, I know when you started, 15 years ago, sir, it was quite a challenge as you began climbing the learning curve.
Sure.
And so we find most lawyers out there and people who think they know stuff about this are absolutely clueless as to what this is actually all about.
Well, they try to hide the rules. I mean, they are not clearly published, and the techniques are not clearly published or well known, and so it's a lot of lore and a lot of trial and error.
And so, and we found that you can't be good at it unless you focus on it, because it's too complicated, it's too weird, and it takes a while. And we tell clients every day, it takes a while to get your arms around the fact that there are things that you can do. You need to stop listening to people telling you there's nothing you can do. And the system is not confiscatory, but it does require that you understand it.
You got to know what you're doing, and you got to do it right, or else you run into bigger problems. But if you know these rules are out there, you ought to seek them out to see how it impacts you and your family, and there's always an answer.
And just because we can do some sort of a plan, and by the way, all the Medicaid plans that we do, if any transactions have occurred within the 5-year look back, which is not a bar to transactions, it's a disclosure, is completely disclosed to the government.
Exactly. We're very upfront and honest, and our applications are usually 6-8 inches thick because we're telling them everything, so there's no secrets.
Yeah, there's no deception, there's no hiding of the assets, there's no hiding of the strategies, and the fact is, if you were to engage in those sorts of strategies, you've committed a crime, which we have absolutely no intention of assisting somebody in doing.
Exactly. There's right ways to do it, which are completely legal, completely honest, and if you do it properly, you're going to have a good outcome.
But part of the challenge is when they're being told there's nothing you can do, sometimes we don't do something. And the reason for it is the economics may not justify it. If a person's only going to live 3 months, it's going to take us a year to qualify, well, obviously we're not going to do anything.
Exactly.
But if on the other hand, it's going to take us a year to qualify the person, and it looks like they're going to live 3 years, well, that's a call to action.
Exactly. And so people often will say, well, what do I do? And we're more geared towards here are your choices and your options with pros and cons. And people usually will make the right decision for their benefit.
And so basically, we can protect about 50% of the assets, but sometimes it may take a year to protect 50% depending on the amount, 3 years. And if it's going to take 5 years, which occasionally it does, well, you have to look at the person and say, do they have a 5-year life expectancy? The answer is no, well, then you don't do it.
Exactly. And if it doesn't make sense, then you can help get them down that path, but without doing silly things.
Tom, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
You're welcome.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Few things in life are as important as family. Leave your insurance worries to us, Wright Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
Every life that meets its end leaves a heart for love to mend. Sister, brother, family, friends are left to carry on. When the loss seems more than you can bear, it's nice to know that we'll be there at Double Save Fiery Funeral Home. We care.
Call Ed Lowe to help put your mind at ease.
Welcome to the special guest feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various issues which are of importance to the retirement community. With me today is Jan Gardner, County Executive, Frederick County, Maryland. Welcome to the show, Jan.
Thank you very much for having me.
County Executive, that's kind of a new term in this area.
It is. We're just completing our first term of charter government. I am the first county executive in the history of Frederick County. So my job is to manage county government, and we have a big county government. We have 17 agencies, 2,100 employees. I bring lots of professional work experience as well as government experience to the job. So I think we've done a good job standing up county government and delivering good government efficient services to the citizens of Frederick County. And I also represent the county outside of Frederick, whether it's at the New York City bond rating agencies or in Annapolis or in Washington, D.C., and I set the long-term vision for Frederick County.
And I'll say somewhat ironically as a viewer, some of the internal squabbling that goes on is mostly personal, but the operational aspects of the county, not much debate that it's running pretty darn well.
Yeah, Frederick County government's running well, and I think it helps that I have a background in finance and economics. I really know how to manage the budget, and we've earned that 3 AAA bond rating from all 3 New York City rating agencies, which has saved us millions of dollars in interest by refinancing our debt.
Now, you and I have talked in the past that public-private partnerships is being an important part of moving forward development. There are just certain aspects that the government being involved with improves the potential to control, including something that most people don't really think about, and that's zoning and land use, as well as the development itself.
That's correct. Where we put roads and where we extend water and sewer obviously has an impact. But there's also some things we can partner on with the private sector to move a project forward that otherwise might not happen, particularly if we want that project to be in a certain location. And If you look at the redevelopment of Carroll Creek in the city of Frederick, the city owned most of that property along the creek because it was in a floodplain. So they were able to have some control over what developed there, the architectural control over it, that otherwise wouldn't have been possible if they hadn't owned the property.
We're seeing the same thing in Washington County, also in Cumberland, where the government having some control over that can both protect the historic nature of the downtown area while at the same time doing those added services and needs in order for them to continue to be vibrant and grow.
Well, I think it's important, certainly in Frederick, that our residents love our history. We have an authentic downtown city of Frederick, and we want to make sure we retain that as we redevelop and revitalize the core of our community.
Let's have Director Gregg pull up a couple pictures here, because I know one of the things that I think is extraordinarily exciting is the development of a downtown hotel convention complex.
Well, we have been talking for a number of years about a downtown hotel conference center, which will be located along Carroll Creek as well as along Carroll and Patrick Street in the former Frederick News Post location. And it will incorporate the historic trolley center, also acknowledging the tannery history that is there on the property.
But a block off the traditional historic stuff, so you're not interfering with that, and also not interfering with the traffic flow in the historic area.
We're not. And I will tell you, it will really be transformational to downtown city of Frederick. It will help to revitalize the east side of the Frederick city along the East Street corridor, but it will really benefit all the downtown businesses, our restaurants, and our realtors. The Downtown Frederick Partnership is certainly very supportive, as is our larger business community. And it will allow visitors, and we have over $1 million a day of visitor spending in Frederick County, much of that in the historic core of the city of Frederick. And so it'll be a great place for visitors to stay as well as for our big employers to have conferences.
And then when we talk about public partnerships, private partnerships, it also doesn't mean just spending money, but it also talks about job and economic growth.
It's certainly, we have had SAGE Policy Group, which is Anibon Basu, do a study that projects there'll be about $25 million of economic impact from the project. And I think it's important for people to recognize that this is a city-led project, but we do have a private hotel developer who will build and construct the entirety of the hotel conference center and own and operate it. And the public component of it is really supporting that with street improvements and with public parking. And certainly the city of Frederick and the county have partnered on all the parking structures in the downtown core of city of Frederick, and that's what makes downtown work.
Well, Jan, I think it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. I want to thank you for taking time to appear on our program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Tranquility at Fredericktown Assisted Living and Memory Care provides a warm, home-like atmosphere that promotes daily life enrichment. At Tranquility, our medical director is a geriatric physician. Our professionals support and understand the various stages associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. We have on-site physical, occupational, and speech therapists, as well as around-the-clock licensed nurses. For more information, give Tranquility at Fredericktown a call today, because everyone deserves great care. Let us do the caregiving so you and your loved one can embrace life again.
Come on, Dad, let's go! We're gonna be late! Hurry!
Just one more bid on HurleyAuctions.com. If you haven't visited HurleyAuctions.com, you don't know what you're missing. Whether you're buying or selling, antique cars, tractors, boats, or real estate, you can do it all at HurleyAuctions.com.
Get to know Dr. Carrie Hesley at Diagnostic Imaging Services.
What I find most rewarding is caring for women through our Women's Imaging Center. We have a caring staff that will ease patients through an ultrasound, bone densitometry, breast biopsy, or mammogram. Our health team is sensitive to emotions involved in women's imaging and understands that every woman is at risk for breast cancer. Providing the community with a center that is so dedicated to breast health and the imaging needs of women is something special.
DIS Women's Imaging Center, providing women with progressive care.
Welcome to Contemporary Health Scene. Contemporary Health Scene focuses on the various health issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Gabrielle Henry, Director, Greenfield Assisted Living in Hagerstown. Welcome to the show, Gabby.
Good morning, Mr. Day. Always a pleasure.
You know, as we talk about assisted living, you and I talk routinely about the fact that the care delivery system, both 25 years ago and today, has the same titles, but dramatically changes have occurred, and most specifically assisted living. 25 years ago, assisted living was oftentimes a room in somebody's house. It was unlicensed, not covered by long-term care bills, and essentially no services offered.
Essentially, yes. So, I mean, the healthcare system has changed dramatically in the past 25 years, especially in the geriatric population, assisted living being one of those.
And of course, with the people living a lot longer, it's no question that the advent of dementia and so forth is significantly higher than it would have been 30, 40 years ago.
Yes, that is accurate. So a statistic through the Alzheimer's Association states that there are currently 5.7 million Americans suffering from Alzheimer's, which is the most common form of dementia in the U.S. And then by 2050, it's projected to increase to 14 million.
So when I talk to families about assisted living, many times they're trapped in a perception of assisted living 15, 20 years ago that is not relevant today. And so as we talk to families about it, the first thing they will say, well, my particular family member has the requirement of medically supervised medications, and that would have been a problem 20 years ago, but is not today.
Yes, that is accurate. Specifically at Greenfield Senior Living, we offer different levels of services. They range from levels 1 to 5, and they are just, it's basically a functional assessment that's assessed through point values with how much assistance they require with their activities of daily living, including medication management.
And how do you do that professionally?
Professionally, myself and our delegating nurse go out to whoever's home, rehab unit, hospital, and meet the resident themselves through, we do require a resident assessment tool prior to that, so we can review over them, make sure that the resident is adequately fit for an assisted living and they do not require any skilled nursing requirement. That includes like feeding tubes, oxygen tanks, all of those above.
All right, now relative to the medication management, so you have professional staff there to administer the medications?
Yes, we do. We have 24/7 staff. Med techs, medication technicians who are licensed underneath our delegating nurse are licensed to pass medications. And we also changed a little bit of things at Greenfield Senior Living. 24/7 nursing staff is not required in assisted living, but at Greenfield Senior Living we just changed and we have an overnight staff, weekend nursing staff to really advocate for our residents.
All right, then you would hear, well, if a person had mobility issues or they were in a, you know, the old sort of home environment, they were really could not be in that environment. Is there any particular issues with mobility issues at Greenfield?
Not at all. We are able to assist our residents with transferring, ambulating, with any assistive device they require, whether it be a cane, walker, jerry chair, wheelchair, and we assist with all those transfers.
And how about bathing?
Bathing, yes, we definitely do our bathing. We either supervise, cue, or physically assist with our with bathing with our residents.
And the facility's obviously 100% handicapped accessible.
Yes, definitely.
Now, you know, one of the things that I like about Greenfield is that if you have a person with dementia, sometimes when you're in facilities where dementia is just an adjunct, there's not the level of commitment to dementia. Tell us a little bit about how you do it at Greenfield.
So our community is divided up into 3 different communities, 3 different wings. So whenever my delegating nurse and I go to assess the resident, we see what level of care they will require and what their cognitive ability is. Yes, they may require a higher level of care, but cognitively they're able to advocate for themselves, able to let us know how they're feeling, what they're thinking, but maybe their short-term memory is a little skewed. So as our residents age in place and as the dementia progresses, they're able to age in place within our community and move into different levels of the wings that we have.
So I oftentimes characterize it, the high-functioning people are with the high-functioning people, the mid-functioning people are with mid-functioning. And so high-functioning people in many of these other facilities are also together with very low-functioning people. And it doesn't take much of a rocket science to figure out maybe I don't belong here.
Yes, that is correct. We at Greenfield, we really try to pride on dignity, reserving the dignity of both parties. Example, someone with a higher functioning level of care should not really be rooming with someone with a lower functioning. They may progress faster, and those with lower functioning may not be able to verbalize what they're seeing and how they're feeling, but they are seeing their roommate or seeing someone in their neighborhood able to do more for themselves.
And one of the things that we talk about in dementia facilities is that there are some people that do better in semi-privates, there are other people that do better in privates, and so you really have to assess the person and how they socially interact.
Yes, that is very accurate. So we do have a resident profile that we have the family fill out, where we're able to just kind of get a little bit of background information. How long has this person been living alone? Do you think they would do best in a semi or a private room or in a shared room? Really though, most of our residents do succeed more in a shared room. They have a partner with them, especially as they're transitioning in. That new resident's going through a lot of emotions, grief, guilt, and that the roommate is really able to help her or him really transition a lot quicker.
So how can they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me through calling me at Greenfield Senior Living. Our number is 301-766-9202. And we are located on 310 Cameo Drive in Hagerstown, Maryland.
Gabby, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
Thank you, Mr. Day.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
The Community Foundation, through its scholarship programs and through its strategic grants, has been a positive influence for change.
Last year, change in Frederick County was influenced thanks to nearly 1,800 caring donors. Everyone can help. Your influence is key.
Help us proactively focus on where we need to be investing our energy in the future.
Albright, Crumbacher, Mal & Idtel are a full-service firm that provides elder care services including managing incoming bills, bill payment, depositing checks, balancing bank statements, and preparing, planning, and filing personal tax returns. Put your mind at ease and call us today.
Welcome to the Making Sense feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various financial issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Christian Wright, President, Wright, Gardner Insurance. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, most of our viewers have a number of different types of policies, and so they'll, for instance, on their home have either a homeowner's policy, or if they don't own the home, a renter's policy that might both have a component for property and also a component for liability.
Exactly, and the liability portion of either of those policies is to protect the homeowner or the renter and those living, family members living in the home for causing bodily injury or property damage to someone else.
And that could either be on the premises, or that also follows you in cases you mentioned, like on a golf course or something.
Right, right. You hit the errant golf ball and you hit someone in the head. You've hurt them, but obviously not on your premises, so the liability insurance would kick in to protect you.
That's often why it's important for those that are not homeowners to have a renter's policy, because they pick up that kind of coverage for those other types of weird things that could happen.
Exactly, and most people think of renter's policies as simply providing coverage for their contents, but that liability piece is just as important as if they own a home, because again, they could have a party at their home, someone comes and slips and falls. Again, they could be out and about doing something. Just because they don't own a home does not mean they don't have liability against injuring someone in the public.
And then, of course, their auto policy also has a liability policy attached to it. And one of the things is it's not like health insurance. You get to design your own coverage.
Oh, right. And the only thing about automobile liability insurance, again, which is the operation of a vehicle and you injuring a third party. It's not damage to your vehicle, okay? The interesting thing about that is each state has its minimum requirements. So you are required to carry liability insurance. Now, it is a very minimal amount, but the other problem that we've talked about many times is while it's required, not everyone carries it. So that also is a problem if you're involved in an accident with someone who doesn't have liability insurance.
And one of the biggest holes that we see with liability insurance in an automobile policy is you'll see either $50,000 or $100,000 in property damage. Well, you have $50,000 in property damage and you hit an expensive car, you're responsible for the difference.
Yes.
And how about a semi-truck?
Exactly. And a semi-truck is, they're typically $90,000 to $100,000. Keeping in mind for your viewers to remember that it's not just hitting of another vehicle. I mean, you could actually, something could happen and you could plow through someone's home, okay? And $50,000 to repair property is simply not enough coverage.
And, not wanting to do, comic sight gags, but the reality is if you rear end somebody, you could have 3 or 4 cars end up getting damaged as you accordion them.
Absolutely. You just never know. So One of the things we've talked about is there are ways to increase that limit of liability protection for a very, very nominal amount.
And we encourage people not to target each individual coverage. There's a more efficient way of raising both the liability coverage, the property damage coverage on your vehicle, in addition to the liability coverage on your home. How would you do that?
Right. We would recommend that you purchase an umbrella policy, which is
now, it doesn't mean a particular insurance company. It's a description of a policy.
Correct. But if you visualize an umbrella, it sits on top of and protects over the underlying liability policy. So your homeowner's liability, your automobile liability, if you have watercraft, your personal watercraft liability.
And the property damage.
Property damage, exactly. So the thing is, because that umbrella is further away from the claim, in other words, it's not going to actually pay until those underlying limits are exhausted. Okay, that insurance company is pricing it from their standpoint almost as if there's a deductible until it's reached. So it's less expensive to do that than to increase the primary layer.
Yeah, it's surprisingly inexpensive.
Absolutely.
So we typically recommend as a minimum coverage for people who are not driving extensively, not on the interstate, just kicking around town, about a $500,000 minimum. So what it in essence mean when you put that umbrella policy on, it doesn't have any exposure until the underlying policy is paid out $500,000.
Right, and that's why the pricing, the premium pricing for that is so inexpensive, because it's not even going to pay $1 until that underlying is exhausted.
And here's why you have to have it, and we talk to people about this every day. Almost every dang lawsuit we see is $1 million. It's absolutely pointless. They never get that. But if you have a policy that doesn't cover that amount, you get a letter from the insurance company telling you have to hire your own lawyer for the amount of the excess claim.
Exactly, and lawyers' fees can be very expensive. So having that umbrella is that additional layer of protection that may or may not actually pay for damages, but definitely will protect you in the event that you have to hire an attorney.
Christian, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on the program.
Michael, thank you. And I do want to say that Aldine Moser was one of our clients who made sure that we talked more about the importance of personal umbrellas.
Christian, as always, thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Michael.
Mr. Moser.
All right.
Thank you from Contemporary Retirement.
Remember a more carefree time? Leave your insurance worries to us, Wright Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
These days, it seems like everything's online, and filling out claim forms and receiving and paying bills online isn't always easiest. That's why we at Quality First Insurance encourage you to just give us a call. Let us help.
Hi there, I'm Paul Sweeney with Quality First Insurance, and it's still just as simple. Our offices are open every weekday where you'll be able to call and speak to real, live people.
No detail was missed. I'm so glad that I turned to Quality First Insurance.
I've recommended Quality First Insurance to my friends who've been just as satisfied.
If you're not happy with what you're paying for Medigap, or more importantly, not happy with your service, give us a try. We're locally owned, and we take the time to provide you with the best. We are Quality First Insurance, and our mission is to provide quality products to quality people. Pick up the phone and give us a call today at 800-745-1411.